and refrigerants in Kenya and Africa as a whole.
With the establishment of BITSA Kenya, we are now going one step forward, providing a contact representative in Nairobi to address any issue you may have. Working with you, we would like to be successful in Kenya in the future too, as well as promote the latest technology in refrigeration and air conditioning industry in your country. Thank you very much.
With the establishment of BITSA Kenya, we now also have the opportunity to better support you in the battle against counterfeit products, damaged goods, and unfair competition with compressors coming from China.
BITSA, of course, is the world's largest, indeed single largest manufacturer of refrigeration and air conditioning technology that goes into a lot of things like fridges, air conditioners, and a lot of other industrial applications. They manufacture in over 90 different locations right across the world and have offices in over 100 countries. Kenya is the newest so far. Now, today is Africa Statistics Day, and statistical bodies have today called for better utilization of data to bridge the knowledge gap in matters planning, even as the continent marked the 17th Africa Statistics Day. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Director General Zachary Mwangi lauded progress made in delivering statistical data in enhancing decision-making in the economy. Moving forward, statistical institutions will be working towards harmonizing regional statistics to fast-track the operationalization of the East Africa Monetary Union by the year 2024.
Data collection processes and the identification of key set of economic and social statistics to be produced by the partner states of the East African community is critical for monitoring the progress of integration. And to facilitate the integration process, we note we are a member of the East African community. The partner states, through their national statistical offices, have undertaken to harmonize the compilation of key macroeconomic statistics.
We're talking about the African Statistics Day. Integration is not just a matter of our comparing us with other people, but do we have data that enables us to be comparable?
Reliable data that can guide nation building. We aim also to provide facts to the government in our advocacy, how certain policies affect us, and which ones propel us forward as a nation, and which ones are pushing us backwards. And the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics gives us this information to support our agenda. In the past few years, manufacturing growth in Kenya, as we all know, has stagnated at 10% of our GDP, between 10 and 11%, though the denominator has grown. So we have grown, it's just that other sectors have grown much faster. And without statistical data, we cannot examine the root causes, nor suggest any solutions to this problem to the government. The Bureau of Statistics is therefore a key source of economic indicators that allow us to get the growth trends such as GDP growth used to the measure of, and also measure overall economic growth, as well as look at issues of inflation, consumer price, producer index, manufacturing value add, and others. They also allow us to track the pace of industrial capacity, the impact, the deepening competitiveness, and how structural change is occurring in our economy, and really to become an industrialized nation, which is what we seek to do as Kenya under Vision 2030. There will be no structural transformation without the growth of the manufacturing sector. And this data is helping us to make the right decisions.
We've also seen a much more timely release of data and advance release calendar. If you go to the KNBS website now, for the entire year coming, you know exactly on what day the Bureau will publish its inflation numbers and many other key statistics. So that's is also a huge improvement. There's also much more data available online, including the entire history of economic surveys. If you go to the Bureau's website now, you can download freely PDF copies of any and all economic survey reports pre and since independence.
Well, staying with that story, the International Monetary Fund has reaffirmed its commitment towards building the capacity of regional statistical bodies to boost data collection and planning. In an exclusive interview with KTN Business Today, IMF's Director of Statistics, Louise-Marc Duchamp, said that the IMF had pledged to deepen collaboration at a time when African governments are faced with growing data needs.
First, let me say that, again, you need good data to have good policy, regardless if you're going through a process of economic integration or economic union. When you have an economic union, then it's a bit more complicated because you have to establish some conversion criteria so that country enter the union without huge disimbalance for inflation rate, debts, or fiscal deficit or reserve, for instance. Yeah. And therefore, that means you're adding a component of comparability between those economies. And this is where the IMF, in collaboration with the EAC community, has been key in trying to provide training and technical assistance to ensure that data that are produced in each of the member countries are comparable, they have a similar coverage, they have the same timeliness and quality. And this is, as you can imagine, difficult to achieve, but I think it's important to ensure that you have those characteristics so that when you, at the policy level, when they measure the conversion criteria, they have good benchmark, data benchmark to make it comparable.
Well, indeed, of course, the conversation around African statistics and the quality of statistics here in Kenya being very key to planning and development, because the accuracy of that, of course, drives the accuracy of targeted policy. Well, my colleague Abi Agina has attended the event itself, the Africa Statistics Day, which was, of course, being observed at the KICC here in Nairobi, and is now standing by at our I&M City Center studios to give us an update on just what the conversation there revolved around. Abi, well, the quality of Africa's statistics coming into question, mainly because there are those who say that Africans spend most of their time collecting statistics rather than crunching the numbers.
Well, it has been an interesting debate, really, Wakaba, at the KICC with that particular matter around the accuracy of data being put to test. Well, we've seen the chairman of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, as well as the Director General, emphasizing that the African statistics have made significant progress when it comes to data collection, data cleaning, as well as just samples, the sample scope. So they're trying to say back then, 10 years ago, we had those challenges, but right now we are seeing the statistics institutions actually trying to use more of technology. Like recently, Wakaba, we did have the SME survey that was conducted by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and they did use the various gadgets when it comes to data collection just to improve on the accuracy as well as ensure that the data matches what is based on the international front. But more interesting, Wakaba, was the issue around comparability. We do have statistical bodies across East Africa now that you're looking forward towards a monetary union. These particular bodies, the biggest challenge now is, can data collected by a statistical body in Kenya compare the same data with Uganda, knowing pretty well that the economies sort of share quite a number of aspects. So that has been an ongoing challenge around the comparability, but the degree of variance has not been that worrying. So we are seeing international bodies like the IMF saying that they are going to build capacity and train statistical institutional personnel so as to ensure people are able to deliver quality data that can be used for forecasting as well as for planning for the economic development.
Questions that revolve around things like statistics, of course, is the conversation, for example, around the last, so to say, counting of the population in Kenya, the census, there were numbers which there were claims that these numbers had been fudged. Of course, these numbers also determine the sort of allocations that go to some of these areas. And in mind here, I have the northeastern part of Kenya where the counting indeed had maybe to be redone again. What are we doing to enable the sanctity of these numbers be retained?
Well, good question there, Wakaba. If you come, one of the biggest undoings really for statistical institutions has been a question of capacity. Because if you look at the sparsely distributed areas such as Nairobi, as well as other major counties that have huge populations, you find that data collection has been a challenge in terms of gathering information from households. And this puts to sharp focus some of the methodologies that the statistical bodies are using, and that has been a major area of discussion when it comes to the methodology that is used in data collection. We've seen also the pollsters recently also coming under sharp scrutiny, where we did see the US elections, which had predicted Hillary Clinton would win. And all this touch on the big data conversation, where we also saw in Britain during the referendum, where the polls had indicated that there would be most of the people will vote for Brexit to, actually for Britain to stay in the Union, but this went against the popular majority. So it continues to be a challenge really for African governments, even as they celebrate the 17th Statistics Day. So that's an area that a lot of bodies will be scratching their heads, trying to look at how do we improve the sanctity of data, the credibility of data, so as to avoid situations where the data that has been collected is being critiqued by various bodies. We did see back in time, Wakaba, when we did have the Ease of Doing Business report, that was for 2014, and we did see the CS for Industrialization, Aidan Mohammed, challenging the numbers that were collected by the World Bank around some of the areas Kenya has made progress in. So it is an ongoing challenge that let's see how it's tackled moving forward, especially in the methodology styles that are used.
Well, just to bring an African flavor to this conversation, Abby, the fact that when it comes to things like censuses or even estimating things like the well-being of people, the GDP, that sort of thing, a lot of African communities are not in the habit of counting. They don't count their children, they will not count the number of goats, they will not count the number of women, the number of spouses or that sort of thing. Well, in this case, what is the innovation that has been brought in to try and get around some of these challenges, especially which are contextual in the African or Kenyan setting?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've had talk of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics saying that they want to use some new tools which will be tackling this challenge. They are talking about bringing on board issues like the iPads, where they'll be able to have synchronized systems which they will be able to input the data, and all this is backed up in the database where there are data scientists who are verifying this sort of information. And the other area, of course, Wakaba, is they want to go big on awareness in the household level, and this is basically usually done through the Kenya Health Demographic Survey, where they try to reach out to the communities and just explain to them and help them understand why data is important in terms of their day-to-day living. Because one of the challenges that came out during the SME survey that was conducted 3 months ago was the fact that majority of the SMEs did not also keep their records. So lack of records also hampers the data collection exercise, where we're seeing people being approached by KNBS. They're asked, so how much do you make? Majority of them saying that they just put them in a book. The book can easily, it can get torn, it can get lost. So there's also that challenge at the collection point, where they call them in methodology language the data collectors, where a lot of them are yet to embrace this modern way of data storage. Do you keep data on things to do like your finances? Can you keep data on your health records? So that was one of the other challenges that has been thrown back to us as the citizens, to just change our way of data storing so as to boost and improve the cycle of data collection. Wakaba.
Well, indeed, the interesting conversation right there about the statistics, the sanctity of numbers, and how this, of course, can help us when it comes to, well, creating policy that is both targeted and beneficial to the masses. Thank you very much. Abby, again, of course, standing by for us there at our I&M City Center studios, bringing insight into the Africa